Today's viewer's email has come in from Greg, the subject of which was, "There's need, then there's greed." So, let's get into it. Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for the good content in this channel. I listen to a lot of the stories when I'm out walking. I do believe the longer email, the better. So, here goes. I have changed the names in this story as I don't want to expose anyone. Just share my story. I'm Greg from the UK. In 2015, I finished yet another relationship with a British woman, and I felt I had had enough of Western women. I work away a lot, so if I wasn't being cheated on, there were other issues. A guy I spoke to at work talked about Thailand, and I thought, I'm 33 and single, I get weeks off at a time after each trip, and I might as well go and see what all the hype is. I got a flight for £450 return, and it was 56 baht to £1 at the time. The good old days. I flew Inverness to Manchester, and disaster struck. My bag wasn't to go straight through, so I had to check back in, which made me late for the Manchester to Abu Dhabi flight. The gate was closed. I was put on the next flight 24 hours later. I had only booked for a week too, as I wasn't sure I would like the place. I got to Bangkok eventually, and how clueless I was. I can look back and laugh. I had exchanged £200 in the UK just to have money in my pocket this end. I knew the exchange rate wasn't as good, but it was peace of mind for me. I had been told to go outside to get a taxi once through immigration, but took a limo service instead at 3,000 baht to Pattaya. Once in the taxi, I looked at my phone for the time, and it said 7 o'clock, and it was pitch dark. I thought my clock hadn't adjusted. Why was it still dark? I realised then, as the taxi clock was the same. We got to Pattaya and eventually found the hotel. I had even messed up the room booking. It was a twin room, not a double. But I was there. That was the main thing. I had no Thai SIM card, so was relying on Wi-Fi to call people on Messenger. I had 2 to 3 mates who lived there, but couldn't get an answer from any of them. The hotel bar was closed. It was 9 o'clock, and I wanted to explore. I went to the end of the street and turned right, and immediately there was a bar. I know now this was Second Road I was on. The certain bar lies derelict now. 7 women all ran trying to pull me in. I was overwhelmed and backtracked to the hotel. I tried my friend again, but still got no answer. I thought to myself, grow a set and go back to that bar. So I did. Once in the bar, it was fine. Got a few beers and explained I had been trying to call my friend. The bar girl said if I topped her phone up, she would let me call my friend's Thai number, as he might answer that. I gave 100 baht, and she handed the note to a taxi driver, and that was in the bar, and he ran away. Straight away, I thought I had been robbed. He returned with the top-up, topped him up, got my mate to answer, but before I knew it, I was in Walking Street, making my way back to my hotel at 2 a.m. with a beautiful Thai woman. My week flew, and I was smitten and rebooked straight away for 2 weeks. I returned and quickly started going to a go-go on Second Road, which featured a bar, a go-go, snooker hall, and a pool table. I got to know all the staff, and lots of my friends drank there too. This was the first time I saw Candy. She had really larger-than-life smile with the standard braces on that I think is more a fashion accessory than a dental necessity with Thai women. I began being a regular visitor to Pattaya, going 4 to 5 times a year. I knew all the girls in the go-go, but just as friends. In 2019, I rented a condo in Pratumnak, just outside Pattaya, but the dreaded COVID put an end to that prematurely, so I headed back to the UK. Throughout the lockdown, I happened to stumble upon a profile and noticed the picture was Candy. Her name was in Thai. It said single on the profile, so I added her. A few days later, she accepted, and I messaged her, and she was happy I had remembered her and thanked me for not forgetting her. As lockdown eased a bit, I noticed Candy had been visiting an orphanage a few times a year, and I thought how kind and thoughtful. I would like to do this kind of thing one trip over. Next time I got to Pattaya was 2022, when I financially recovered from COVID. I had a good holiday and noticed how many businesses hadn't survived, and even some people sadly hadn't. I went up Walking Street that night with no certain plan, just following the flow of tourists. I went into a go-go and sat down, and Candy was there, working. I saw her on stage, dancing, and when she finished, she came over for a drink. We got chatting, and I said I'd like to go to the orphanage with her, and she agreed. It would be good. 2 days later, I contacted Candy, and she was happy I did. She said we could go at 2 o'clock, so I had to go and get a taxi to my hotel, and we'll join her in the taxi, and we could both go. The people who ran the orphanage were Italian, a man and 2 women. They were really friendly. The kids were away at a school excursion, so although we got to meet the people who ran the place, we never got to see the kids. We rescheduled though. I didn't want to cut my day short with Candy, so I took her for lunch. She ate so healthy and was such a nice, friendly person. She spoke of a motorcycle accident. I never knew what had happened. On Christmas Eve, she had been driving up Second Road near Terminal 21, approaching the roundabout, and went to overtake the car and had a bad collision. She recalled waking up in the hospital and all one side of her body with no feeling at all. There was a surgeon from Bangkok who had been in Pattaya Hospital for a few days and was delayed that day from returning back to Bangkok. This was an absolute blessing in disguise for Candy. As the medical team learned what had happened, they got her into the theatre. They removed her third vertebrae in her neck and inserted a metal one. She then recalled waking up groggy with full feeling in both sides again and told to get up and walk. She had a neck brace on. She said she had COVID with her accident. It had completely wiped her savings, which is why she was working in a go-go. She told me she had 2 daughters, one to a guy from Myanmar and one to a Thai guy. Her daughters were 6 and 11. It was a great chat, and she had to get off to get ready for work, and I suggested she stay with me and we could go and get some drinks. She was delighted, as I assumed the thought of just chilling with me as opposed to having to fake smile in the go-go to get drinks seemed better. She went home for a shower and change and met me in a bar later. Then she was the free agent for the evening, and as far as work was concerned. We had a good night, and she went home, and I stayed in my hotel. We arranged to go to the orphanage the next day, and this time I bought 16 various football kits, all different sizes, and saw all the kids that day at the orphanage, and had a great day. I stayed with Candy again, but this time was different. I suggested we get a nicer hotel for just one night, with a jacuzzi, etc. We did so, and became more than friends that evening. I returned to the UK and kept in touch with Candy, and in July she ended up in hospital with abnormal blood pressure. It was through the roof. I saw her post in Facebook. Her bill was 2,750 baht, as she took a photo of the bill. She explained to me after COVID vaccine, her and her younger brother's blood pressure was not good. She lived a healthy life, gym, healthy eating, no smoking or drugs, but the downfall was working in a go-go with people smoking, vaping, and buying drinks all the time. She was no longer fit for this type of work. Although she was not my girlfriend, I had feelings for her. I paid her 2,750 baht medical bill, and it started. The first transaction had been made. Into July, we started chatting in messages about all sorts. She exchanged photos of the kids and what they were doing every day, and telling me about her life also. She had her own room, and her daughters lived at her mum's, also in Pattaya, as the common Thai way was. Candy spoke of wanting to change her life, and I suggested hotel reception work, etc. This was all hard when you had no logged work history at 34 years old. Also, a certificate had to be provided for decent English and computer work, etc. I suggested English lessons as her English was good. It was just the grammar. Could do with a brush up. I looked at the courses, 39,000 baht, and let's just say a booking never happened. She said she could help her Thai friend whose boyfriend constructed villas. They would both do admin for the wages for the construction workers. Her friend would pay her $500 a day in cash. This would be $3,500 a week and $14,000 a month. The starting wage in the go-go was $18,000, but she wanted to leave that behind once and for all. Yes, I know. Offered to give her $18,000 a month and she could work with her friend. She was over the moon, and they finished the remaining 3 shifts at the go-go, and we became a couple. So that's a potential 32,000 baht a month guaranteed, all going well. I had done a 6-week stint working offshore in Africa and was back in the UK in December, in wintertime, awaiting my next visit to Thailand. I arranged for Candy to meet me in a hotel in the Nana area of Bangkok. We met, and it felt so different, but good. She looked beautiful and happy. I learned she liked red wine and steak, so I took her for food. The red wine was a good choice for her blood pressure. The next day, we both went for 350 meters into the Bangkok sky and stood on the glass floor and looked down. We visited the Mahana Kon Skywalk. It was good. Then, it was almost Christmas. I bought Candy a brand new iPhone 15. It was a smaller one, and she had the Pro Max in her hand, and I could tell she wanted it, looking back. This was a mistake on my behalf, as I feel it opened the financial floodgates of a potential ruin. Her face lit up, and she said, "Greg, are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, it's fine." It was 52,000 baht. We headed back to Pattaya and straight into her mother's house, and I met her mother and her Thai partner, Candy's brothers and male cousin, and the 3 neighbours all at once, and also the 2 kids. I had presents for the kids and her mother. I got her mother a security camera for the front of her house, as she thought things had been going missing. Little did I know this camera would play such a role in time. Her mother never messed around. She asked why I want a beer, and came straight out with, "What do you want with my daughter?" I was taken aback, and to relax her mother I said, "I've known Candy 8 years now, just a few months." Not just a few months. Her mother looked at her as if to say, "You were never said," and then everyone relaxed. It was then I thought to myself, this must be a cultural difference. Thais must keep their cards close to their chests. Guys, if I could just interrupt the story for a second and say, if any of you have any stories that you want to share about yourself or someone you know, as long as it's Thailand related, please do so by using the email address in the description. We do rely on these stories coming in to keep the channel going, so any story is most appreciated. Also, if you could give the video a like, comment, share, subscribe and all those good things, that way we have more chance to get this more stories from more people. So cheers guys, I really appreciate it. Now, back to the story. As time went on, Candy would stay every few nights at my hotel, but explained with not working in the go-go, she had time she could spend with her daughters and stayed at her mother's some nights. She would call me always on video to see where I was. It came to light she didn't like me frequenting the bars and drinking so much. New Year was approaching, so on December 31st, we met her friend in a snooker hall in Jomtien, and her friend had a Norwegian husband who had great English and was a nice man. He had 7 or 8 friends with him, all male with their partners. They only wanted to play snooker, so Candy and her friend left before we did. The Norwegian husband gave his wife 3,000, and his words were, "So you can buy drinks back." We went to a bar with live Thai music, and after I bought 3 rounds as the girls ignored me and spoke in Thai, I said to Candy about her friend having 3,000 baht for drinks and asked did she plan on spending it. This never went down well. I started feeling like an ATM. I gave Candy 1,000 baht and left her to it. An hour later, Candy tried to video call me and said I was away to meet my friend, but went to a quiet bar and had drank alone. I stayed alone that night. We briefly spoke, and to make things better, I booked the Hilton in Bangkok for me and Candy to surprise her on January the 3rd. She wouldn't go, so I went on my own and enjoyed it alone. Once back in Pattaya, she explained in future I must set a date to do things, as she had a day planned with the kids, and I thought, okay, fair enough. I suggested we go eat Thai food, and the words could be barely left my mouth, and 4 motorbikes got fired up, and I ended up paying for the whole family, and 3 neighbours, an evening meal. It wasn't expensive, but once again, ATM. My hotel had a nice pool and flumes. The kids came around to use it, with Candy, her mother, and her partner. We had a few beers and a good day. Then food after. I didn't mind paying that, as it was like a family meal. My holiday was coming to an end, but I never had work lined up and had savings, so I wanted to extend by 14 days. But the hotel price had rocketed due to Chinese New Year. I ended up paying a deposit and began a year lease on a condo in Jomtien, the 33rd floor at 18,000 baht a month, with a city view, and I liked it. Candy negatively commented on the rooms being small, and her mother thought the rent was extortionate. I never let it burst my bubble. While Candy was at work, she was happy as long as she knew where I was. Me, her mother and partner went to Big C, and I kitted the condo out with necessities. It was all possible as her mother's partner had a motorbike with a big sidecar. I treated them to lunch, and they suggested I come to the house and wait for Candy to finish work. I gave her mother 1,000 baht to share with her partner for helping me so much. She immediately spent it all on Chang beer. Her mother liked to drink. Anyway, I had a few with them, and Candy came home, and everything was okay. Candy had been watching on the security camera and told me how many beers I had drunk. Boris was from Germany. He was 84 years old and cycled a push bike. I was introduced to him a few days later on Candy's mother's porch. Boris came to Thailand when Germany was cold and returned before Songkran. He stays in Candy's room and pays the rent there, so the fees 5,500 baht a month for her while he's there. Candy was not at work this day, as she never felt well. This was the start of a trend. Boris was Candy's mother's ex-partner. They had been together 12 years, but only saw each other November to March each year. They were still friends, and I learned Boris had money in lockable safes in Pattaya he used to add to frequently. Boris had no offspring in Germany, and promised when he dies, Candy's mother would be given 2 keys, and all the money would be for the family. Also, to keep Boris sweet, he thought Candy's mother's partner was her brother. This was my first eye-opener. When Boris visited, the mother's partner would sit out back of the house. None of my business, I suppose. One day, Candy was off and got straight to the point. 18,000 baht wasn't enough. She wanted more from me. We worked her bills out, 5,500 for her room rent, 6,500 mother's room rent, as the kids live there, and 1,500 for the kids' school, and 4,200 for her bike. I agreed to give 22,000 and no more. To make her money go further, I took her to the finance place she owed 80,000 on for the remainder of the bike, and paid it in full. The hidden costs began to creep. In 2,000, here 3,000, 2,000 there, and another 3,000 here. And it was always said, Pattaya expensive place, Greg, you know. One day, on her mother's porch, I sat there with her mother, and we had a few beers, and her mother said, Greg, I don't know how to say this, but I'm in trouble. I owe money, and I'm worried. I have to pay it back. 26,000 baht. She was so upset, and I was boozy, and I transferred it. In the morning, I thought how stupid I am. I'd never do this in the UK. Anyway, it was done. Her mother was delighted and thanked me so much. I began getting a sore foot one day in my condo and wasn't really talking to Candy, as she just kept asking for money, and it was really getting to me. I went to the Jomtien hospital, and I had gout. Got tablets and rested my foot, so I could not get worse. Once I was mobile again, I adopted a health kick. No more alcohol, joined the gym, bought a push bike, and began healthy eating. I had no breakfast, only black coffee, lots of water throughout the day, Thai yellow curry and rice for lunch, and Thai basil chicken for dinner, and spent 340 baht all day. It dawned on me, why did Candy need so much money? I went to Central and bought running shoes and headphones. My regime was working. I lost 5 to 6 kilograms and felt good. I would message Candy, and her replies were very vague, and it felt like she was uninterested in what I was doing. In February, I went to a safety training place and did a 5-day course to further my career. It felt weird doing normal things in Pattaya, sober. My sobriety finished up completing the course, and I decided to go to Candy's mother's and try to suss out what was going on. Candy was on the hammock, hadn't been at work all week, and had a sty in her eye and wanted to go to the clinic. I thought I'd best get my ATM costume on for this one. Then, suddenly she didn't want to go. I couldn't work that one out. Things started to fizzle out, and I went to the bars more often, as you would always find someone to talk to. I was scheduled to go back to the UK soon, and Candy basically started moaning about me doing anything out with being an ATM, and we had a row, and I went back to the UK single. I returned to Thailand in March. I never contacted her. I went to a go-go when her younger cousin worked there. I bought her a drink, and she said, I hear what happened to Candy's brother, and I said no. It turned out, at 20 years old, he had a blood clot that turned into a brain hemorrhage, and it was at the back of his brain where they couldn't operate. The survival rate was low if they did operate, and it would cost 650,000 baht for the operation. He passed away. I felt dreadful. I thought I will give it a few days before I contact, as I'd like to offer my condolence, but best to let the dust settle. I did so, and Candy wrote back telling me what happened, and she was worried, as she still had blood pressure problems. I went to Chaiapum to visit my friend's father. His name is Troy. He's 72 years old and has a Thai wife. I see him as the wisest person I've met. It's quiet up there. I only stayed 2 nights, but after being there, I wanted to see Candy and the family. I did so, and Candy's mother said Boris had gave 15,000 baht towards the funeral. Candy's mother asked me for 8,000 baht for school books, shoes, uniforms, etc. for the 2 kids going back to school, and I gave it to her. The mother also squeezed out a vet visit for the dog, which we all went to, and I had to fund a puncture repair for one of the kids' bikes. Candy began staying most nights in my condo with me. Things were good again. Then, one day, Candy asked me for 4,000 baht for school books, school uniforms, etc. for the kids going back to school. I hit the roof, and in a blazing row I blurted out how I can take care of Candy and the 2 daughters, but not the whole family and the neighbours too. Enough was enough. Once calmed down, I explained her mother had already got the back to school stuff. Her face changed, and she said, "Do not give my mother money without running it by me first, please." A week later, at her mother's, she had a big row with her mother and was going through her mother's phone. And a week later, she moved the kids to my room, and no one went near her mother's house. I was due to go back to the UK for work so I could pay the bills. This happened, and things started to look up again. Candy stopped talking to her mother, and yes, the camera I had bought her mother not only recorded pictures, but sound too. Candy heard her mother slagging her off in Thai, and this upset her. She opened to me a bit, explaining her mother was happy for her to work in the go-go and reap the financial rewards. I asked why she stopped talking to her mother, and it turned out 26,000 baht and 8,000 baht I gave her mother out of goodness of my heart had been spent on Chang and online casinos. Candy's finger ID could open her mother's phone, and it was previously Candy's phone, and she saw all of this. As time went on, Candy's hair was falling out in chunks. She was doing 7 miles a day on the bike to get the kids to school and working her friend, and all the grief and hidden costs were coming my way. Then, if Candy ended up ill, I had to foot the bill too. The eldest daughter messaged me saying she hears Candy crying in the toilet at night. What a bad situation, I had to think. The demands were thick and fast. One daughter fell and smashed her teeth. That was a dentist bill. Candy's glasses broke. That was another bill. Condo rent, electricity, water, my UK bills, flights, and trying to save for my return. It all got on top of me. I got drunk in the UK and began arguing about it all. Anyway, Candy got so angry she ended up in hospital. Yes, another bill. She recovered, but things were not the same. I was constantly anxious. Every message was a transaction. I wanted to give the condo up, but had 3 people living there. I tried to pass it off lightly by saying one day if Candy and the kids could move back into Candy's room, it would free up more money, as I'd give the condo up, but she flew off the handle, saying she knew I'd finished with her, and Boris was in her room. Saying I made her mother a heavy drinker, she chose me over the family, and now she had nothing. All lies. Her mother drank daily and had scammed me twice. Once back, talking to her mother, Candy started gaslighting me on a regular basis. I could call and ask a simple question, and she would start shouting, "You're going to elevate my blood pressure and put me in the ICU." Then her mother would take the phone and say, "Greg, what is the problem?" There wasn't a problem. Candy's friend she worked for connected me, saying she thinks I should be taking care of Candy better, and how 20,000 a month was not enough with 2 daughters. I got some screenshots of transfers for the month of the opticians, doctors, and new glasses, and it was 60,000, and sent that to her friend, who had obviously been fed utter lies by this greedy woman. Anyway, over the week, she moved her things out of the condo. I had to keep her sweet and return, get the condo keys to the landlady, and call it a day with this relationship once and for all. I returned, and everything wasn't great. I got the keys and inspected the place. Was spotless. I called and thanked Candy for leaving the place so good. I began savagely dumping items and giving things away to neighbours. I wanted back in a hotel ASAP, and this chapter to be over. I gave the condo up and met Candy once I had my stuff into the hotel. I looked at her and still had feelings. I thought, how can things go like this? We ate in a good restaurant. It cost 6,000 baht, and Candy had oysters and had to take all her photos for Instagram and Facebook, and I thought I had paid for everything that day. Boy, was I wrong. This was her clawing something back in injury time. The rain started and heavy. I suggested a taxi to Central, and we could go into the cinema, and she agreed. Once into the cold aircon, she wanted a jumper, as the cinema would be cold. So, floor 1 for a jumper, 450 baht. Floor 2, mango, 100 baht. And we had just ate. Floor 3, noodles, 100 baht. Floor 5, a daft crane game to grab a teddy, 100 baht to play. I gave her a 500 note to get change. She pocketed it all. I said, "Where's my change?" And she laughed sarcastically and said, "What, you want your change?" I said, "Yes, it's mine." She gave it whilst laughing. We watched a film, and the rain had stopped. She wanted to go to her mother's so I could be the family ATM again. I said no. We went into a pharmacy, and she asked me to buy her 3,500 baht face cream. I rolled my eyes, and she said, "I see your face there." I said, "I'm not buying it." She muttered, "I will get it with the 22,000 baht next week." I thought, yeah, right. We went and had drinks, and her friend she worked for told her she could earn 1,000 baht each time she successfully gets someone to rent their party villa. So, Candy sat there, her face in her phone all night, which introduced me to the final argument, where she said, 22,000 baht is not big money, Greg. I still have my body and could go back to the go-go and earn more. I ended things by saying, "Enjoy your life, Candy," and I walked away. 14 months and over 1 million baht later, I met the real Candy. Within 4 days, I was blocked on her Facebook by her mother, and kids. Candy's last message said, "You always do to me like this when you are drunk, Greg. You bad. F you." I hope Boris has no money in them safes, but I will never find out. This is strange, because if it was not for the financial demands, things wouldn't have been so bad. And I miss the scenario and think about her a lot. But here I am, 4 months on, single. I saw her drive past in her friend's car, and she laughed at me. Least I know I can still make her smile. I won't be involved with another like this again, and that's for sure. Thanks, Greg.